Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto thee and to us and to all your beloved children everywhere. Dearly beloved, make it so. Om, peace, peace, peace unto us all. So good morning and namaste, everyone. We're here to read and discuss the wonderful book Divine Grace by Swami Ranganathananda. And just so you'll know, when we finish this book, we will take up Swami Vivekananda's talk that he gave in Pasadena in January of 1900, called Christ the Messenger. Christ the Messenger. A powerful statement of the meaning and gift of the divine incarnation. It is really a remarkable talk, and I'm sure we will very much enjoy reading and discussing it. That's my conviction anyway. So before we start with Jeff reading today, is there anything that needs to be commented on or any concern or question that is left over from previous sessions? All right, Jeff, please tell us where we are in the book, and we'll move on.
We are somewhere in the middle of section 19, which is Some World's Mystics on Divine Grace, and we are on page 52. In the 2/3 of the way down the page, on page 52.
Okay.
In all such experiences of saints, be they simple cooks of a monastery like Brother Lawrence, or princesses like Mirabai, we can witness the truth of divine grace and its flooding of human life. One of the most oft quoted verses on the impact of divine grace on human life is what occurs among the group of 9 verses known as Gita Dhyana Slokas, or Gita meditation verses. I salute Madhava, Sri Krishna, the embodiment of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the dumb eloquent and the lame cross mountains. I'd like to repeat that verse.
And it's Madhava.
Madhava? Okay.
Madhava.
Thank you. I salute Madhava, Sri Krishna, the embodiment of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the dumb eloquent and the lame cross mountains.
As it's Christmas time, we can reflect on the fact that some 2,000 or 3,000 years before the advent of Christ, here was a comment on a divine incarnation, an avatar making the dumb speak and the lame walk. So this is not something that is unusual for the avatars. It simply is in their nature to heal. And that's a very powerful message for us to reflect on if we feel any need for healing. Anything that anyone else would like to say about those thoughts? All right, dear, please move on.
The nature of Purushakara, or self-effort, and Bhagavad Kripa, or divine grace, and their place in man's spiritual life are brought out lucidly through illustration of gardening by Saint Teresa of Avila in a beautiful passage in her autobiography. It's quoted here from the Complete Works of Saint Teresa of Jesus. The beginner must think of himself as of one setting out to make a garden in which the Lord is to take his delight, yet in soil most unfruitful and full of weeds. His Majesty uproots the weeds and will set good plants in their stead. Let us suppose that this is already done, that a soul has resolved to practice prayer and has already begun to do so. We have now, by God's help, like good gardeners, to make these plants grow and to water them carefully so that they may not perish, but may produce flowers which shall send forth great fragrance to give refreshment to his Lord of ours, to give refreshment to this Lord of ours, so that he may often come into the garden to take his pleasure and have his delight among these virtues. Let us now consider how this garden can be watered, so that we may know what we have to do, what labor it will cost us, if the gain will outweigh the labor, and for how long this labor must be borne. It seems to me that the garden can be watered in 4 ways: by taking the water from a well, which costs us great labor, or by water wheel and buckets, when the water is drawn by a windlass. I have sometimes drawn it this way. It is less laborious than the other and gives more water. Or by a stream or a brook, which waters the ground much better, for it saturates it more thoroughly, and there is less need to water it often, so that the gardener's labor is much less. Or by heavy rain, this part is emphasized in italics, or by heavy rain, when the Lord waters it with no labor of ours, a way incomparably better than any of those which have been described. And that concludes that passage, and perhaps is a good stopping point.
Well, it's certainly, this is one of the things that is so striking, is how practical these saints are. They have flown to the highest heights. They have known the most intimate relationship with the divine. And they return to us with these extremely practical ways of thinking. Here she talks about the 4 ways of watering the plants, the fragrant flowers that the Lord plants in us in order to take delight in their flowering. But how to water them, how to give them our attention. And so she describes these 4. And she says, this is this, and that is that. I don't need to repeat it. But if we leave well enough alone, the Lord will come and water his own plants. If we practice prayer and meditation, the Lord will water his own plants so that he or she can come and take delight. What a extremely practical and loving way of looking at this. Of course, the saints always come at this from a loving point of view. The love that they feel and the love that they offer is unconditional and it comprises everything. Anything else from anyone about any of that? Please speak up if you have anything to say.
I remember this part from the first time we studied this book, really liking it. And I was trying to pull up a haiku but I couldn't find it in the moment, but it's about this. It's just basically, well, it's not exactly about this. It's about the last part of it, about, the Lord coming along and letting the Lord drive the boat, so to speak.
Exactly.
It's like we can sit and do nothing and spring will come, things will
Yes.
go right along, whether we're pushing or pulling or not. And the most joyous thing we find, if we're lucky, through practice, is that just showing up and doing what's in front of us without overthinking it or being calculating about it or anything, just showing up, being present, doing what it seems the thing to do in the moment, and letting the divine do the rest, drive the boat, the bus,
And,
whatever.
and I liked your metaphor of spring come. We don't have to do anything to have spring come. Winter will be.
Unknown caller.
I can't talk now. I'm in class. I'll call you back. So there we are. Thank you, Cindy, as always, for those wonderfully relevant comments. Anything else from anyone? Anything to say, please? All right, Jeff, please forge ahead.
In his great book, The Confessions of St. Augustine, this outstanding Christian mystic, who lived during the 4th to 5th century after Christ, describes in a vivid and fascinating passage his conversion to a God-centered life from a life of agnosticism and sensual dissipation, and the part played in that spiritual transformation by his own intellectual and spiritual efforts and struggles, his loving mother Monica's prayers on behalf of her gifted but worldly son, and the shower of divine grace. In his experience of grace, we are able to recognize the vital place of self-reliance and the keen struggle to be graceworthy, what Sri Ramakrishna calls vyakulata, or yearning. And I said that with a question mark because I didn't know how to say it.
Just yearning. Let's just leave it at that.
And the true nature of that beautiful experience of conversion as understood in the science of religion, unlike the political hunting and head counting which has degenerated into his own Christianity and some other ethnical religions. Confessing to God and addressing him, Augustine writes in a moving poetic prose passage of his book the following, which is quite a lengthy quotation. And now, from the hidden depths, my searching thought had dragged up and set before the sight of my heart the whole mass of my misery. Then a huge storm rose up within me, bringing with it a huge downpour of tears, so that I might pour out all these tears and speak the words that came with them. I rose up from Alypius, parentheses, solitude seemed better for the business of weeping, end the parentheses, and went further away, so that I might not be embarrassed even by his presence. This was how I felt, and he realized it. No doubt I had said something or other, and he could feel the weight of my tears in the sound of my voice. And so I rose to my feet, and he, in a state of utter amazement, remained in the place where we had been sitting. I flung myself down on the ground somehow under a fig tree and gave free rein to my tears. They streamed and flooded from my eyes, an acceptable sacrifice to thee. And I kept saying to you, not perhaps in these words, but with this sense, and thou, O Lord, how long, O Lord, wilt thou be angry forever? Remember not our former iniquities. For I felt that it was these which were holding me fast, and in my misery I would exclaim, how long this tomorrow and tomorrow? Why not now? Why not finish this very hour with my uncleanness? So I spoke, weeping in the bitter contrition of my heart. Suddenly a voice reached my ears from a nearby house. It was the voice of a boy or girl, I don't know which, and in a kind of sing-song the words are constantly repeated, take it and read it, take it and read it. At once my face changed, and I began to think carefully of whether the singing of words like these came into any kind of game which children play, and I could not remember that I had ever heard anything like it before. I checked the force of my tears and rose to my feet, being quite certain that I must interpret this as a divine command to me to open the book and read the first passage which I should come upon. For I had heard this about Antony. He had happened to come in when the gospel was being read, and as though the words were spoken directly to himself, had received the admonition, Go sell all that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. And by such an oracle he had been immediately converted to you. So I went eagerly back to the place where Alypius was sitting, since it was there that I had left the book of the apostle when I rose to my feet. I snatched up the book, opened it, and read in silence the passage upon which my eyes first fell. Not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying, but put ye on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make not provision for the flesh in, never saw that English word before, concupiscence? That's my best guess, concupiscence.
Desire.
Concupious. I can't say it either. I know the word you mean.
Okay.
Concupiscence.
Concupiscence.
Desire.
I had no wish to read further. There was no need to, for immediately I had reached the end of this sentence, it was as though my heart was filled with a light of confidence, and all the shadows of my doubt were swept away. Before shutting the book, I put my finger or some other marker in that place, and told Alypius what had happened. By now my face was perfectly calm, and Alypius in his turn, told me what had been going on in himself, and which I knew nothing about. He asked to see the passage which I had read. I showed him, and he went on further than the part I had read, nor did I know the words which followed. They were these: Him that is weak in the faith, receive. He applied this to himself and told me so. He was strengthened by the admonition, calmly and unhesitatingly. He joined me in a purpose and resolution so good and so right for his character, which had always been very much better than mine. The next thing we do is to go inside and tell my mother how happy she is. We described to her how it all took place, and there is no limit to her joy and triumph. Now she was praising you, who art able to do above that which we ask or think. For she saw that, with regard to me, you had given her so much more than she used to ask for, when she wept so pitifully before you. For you converted me to you in such a way that I no longer sought a wife or any other worldly hope. I was now standing on that rule of faith, just as you had shown me to her in a vision so many years before. And you changed her mourning into joy, a joy much richer than she had desired, and much dearer and purer than that which she looked for by having grandchildren of my flesh. That concludes that passage.
And you can imagine how important the Swami considered it to be. Ranganathananda considered it to be, to give so much of the book to that passage. There is absolutely no reason for us, even in our despair, to feel somehow separate and apart, because that which is, that which creates and manifests everything, as the opening prayer says, holds us lovingly. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. And that's exactly what's going on here. So even in our darkest moments, even in the dark night of our soul, when we have those dark moments, and we will have those dark moments, if we just reflect back on that prayer that opens these sessions, and then if we can, remember what happened to St. Augustine. Anything else from anyone about any of that?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes.
Saint Augustine reminds me a little bit of Girish Ghosh.
Very well said.
I could see the similarities of Girish Ghosh, how he transformed from where he was at the beginning of seeing Sri Ramakrishna. And Saint Augustine is higher level. He's way higher than him, but still there is similarities.
Well,
Quite a few.
it is notice that it is the action, the direct action, one through a book and through a friend and through a child.
Yeah.
Take it and read it. Take it and read it.
That's wonderful.
All of these things, it's always there. All we have to do.
It is.
He had ignored that child.
That's right.
If Augustine had ignored that child, but instead he said, I need to take this as a direction from the divine. And so he went back to the book and opened it, remembering what had happened when another saint had just walked into the room when some gospel was being read. This was very early on. These were in the very early centuries after Christ's advent.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Thank you, dear. Anything else from anyone? All right, please read on.
Then follows the spiritually significant account of his realization of God, not as a faraway, extra-cosmic, monotheistic deity, which cannot be experienced, but can only be believed in, but as the very soul of his soul, the life of his life. So this is a brief quotation from the same book. And what is this God? I asked the earth, and it answered, I am not he, and all things that are on the earth confess the same. I asked the sea and the deeps and the creeping things with living souls, and they replied, We are not your God, look above us. I asked the blowing breezes, and the universal air with all its inhabitants answered. There's another word I don't know how to say. Anaximenes, a Greek individual. Anaximenes was wrong. I am not God. I asked the heaven, the sun, the moon, the stars, and no, they said, we are not the God whom you are looking. And I said to all those things which stand above the gates of my senses, Tell me about my God, you who are not he. Tell me something about him. And they cried out in a loud voice, He made us. For truth says to me, Your God is not heaven or earth or any other body. And now, my soul, I say to you that you are, and now, my soul, I say to you that you are my better part. You animate the whole bulk of the body, giving it life, a thing which no body can do for another body. But your God is for you too, the life of your life. And that concludes that passage and the section.
Well, those last words, the divine being is the life of our life. And it is not anything of the phenomenal realm. This is why he goes through this lovely litany, which is so reminiscent of the way it's presented in the Upanishads. I ask this, I ask that, I ask this, I ask that. And all said, no, no, it's not us. He is that which made us. He is that which animates us.
In a way, that's kind of netty, not this, not this.
Precisely, precisely. It is exactly that. And so he ultimately says, what is the soul. And the soul is that. And that is who I am. That is the life of my life. So read those last few words again, just the last sentence or so of that section.
For truth says to me, Your God is not heaven or earth or any other body. And now, my soul, I say to you that you are my better part. You animate the whole bulk of the body, giving it life, a thing which nobody can do for another body. But your God is for you too, the life of your life.
That's perfect. Thank you. That was the perfect reading. Exactly. And so that's what we come here to find. We come here to listen to these saints tell us these things so that we may believe it and we may practice it. And as we practice it, it becomes a deeper and deeper reality for us. And the words of our tradition begin to be more meaningful to us. Instead of soul, we say Atman. Mm-hmm. We say soul also, but Atman is really the word. We come to discover that Atman is the life of our life. That is what is giving us what we see as the phenomenal reality and the supramental or superconscious reality. So joy, joy, joy. And that which dispels all darkness, as it is said over and over in various hymns and scriptures. Anything else from anyone?
I'd just like to chime in that I think that Atman is a much better word than soul. It might be because a lot of us with a Christian upbringing have one concept of soul that is not quite the same thing as the Atman as we understand it here. And I think Atman more conveys the fact that that God is divinity within us. That we are in God, and it's all one Atman, but we're using the words that we've got to try to express that.
Well, that's it. The common Christian conception, particularly the fundamentalist conception, is that the soul is somehow the prisoner of the body. And as John O'Donohue says, no, the soul is not within the body. The body is within the soul. It is a creation of the soul. And so we'll hear a little bit more from John O'Donohue tomorrow morning during the talk. Anything else from anyone?
Yes. Good morning. This is Jen.
Good morning, Jen. Good morning. Good to hear from you. Namaste.
It's good to have my voice back, which is good. This last sentence, but your God is for you too, the life of your life, speaks to me about something I've been thinking about and reading and hearing Swami Sarvapriyananda talk about. I think it was Swami Vivekananda who said about it's not God for our life, like a convenience, like something we have to make our life better and praying for that. But true renunciation is my life for God. And that's what this last sentence speaks to me about, that God is the life of our life. That's what I have to say.
Very nicely said, Jen.
Thank you.
Very nicely, very nice parallel. And yes, when we think, where does this life come from? It doesn't come from chemistry, from genetics, and no, all that is just supportive of what wants to be. The divine wants to be, and so that creates us, and we are that wants to be. But it doesn't want to be limited. It wants to experience the universe of limitation, but doesn't want to be limited. That's the great mystery of Maya, is that the limitations are there, but they are things of Maya, not of the soul or Atman. Thank you, Jim. As always, good to hear from you. Anything else from anyone? How are we doing for time?
We've got about 27 minutes still.
Oh, good, wonderful. Okay, well then read on. Let's hear the rest.
Okay, we're starting section 20, which is called Sri Ramakrishna and the Unity of God, the Personal, and God, the Impersonal.
Whoa, all right.
A lot of stuff going on in that title.
Yes, indeed.
The most important reference to what bhakti religions call self-surrender and divine grace occurs in the Upanishads, in the teaching of Yama to Nachiketa. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In the Kata Upanishad, on the subject of the realization of the Atman, the one infinite self of all. This Atman cannot be attained by study of the scriptures, nor by a sharp intellect, nor by much hearing. By him it is attained whom it chooses. To him this Atman reveals its own true form.
Hold on just one moment. This is exactly what Jesus meant when he said, "Ye have not chosen me, I have chosen you. So go back and read that again, and let's hear this echo in Christ. We hear it in the Upanishads, and we hear it later from Christ. Not because Christ read the Upanishads and was copying it, but because it is one of these truths that sages know and say in different ways. So please read that again.
The most important reference to what bhakti religions call self-surrender and divine grace occurs in the Upanishads, in the teaching of Yama to Nachiketa, in the Katha Upanishad, on the subject of the realization of the Atman, the one infinite self of all. This Atman cannot be attained by the study of scriptures, nor by a sharp intellect, nor by much hearing. By him it is attained whom it chooses. To him this Atman reveals its own true form.
So it's up to us to make ourselves available to that. We can't make it happen. But if we do our spiritual practices and bring ourselves into the vicinity of the Atman, then we may be chosen. Okay, anything else from anyone?
That's exactly what is said in the Way of a Pilgrim, Brother Shankara. The
Who's-
pilgrim says the same thing. God distributes uh, he distributes his gift in a wisdom form to the person according to their strengths. So we have to be able to see and receive it, I believe, like you said.
Yes.
That's exactly what he said in the book.
Yeah, and at one time, Sri Ramakrishna came and actually sat
Yeah.
on Vivekananda's shoulders. And Vivekananda said, "What are you doing?" And Sri Ramakrishna said, "I'm seeing if you can bear my weight." And the most important characteristic of a spiritual aspirant, according to Sri Ramakrishna, is grit, G-R-I-T, grit, determination. Please come in. The lady is bringing my lunch, bless her heart. Thank you, dear. Do you have a drink for me?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good, thank you.
Ice cream is in the freezer.
Oh, thank you, dear. They take such nice care of me here. So this idea of you have not chosen me, I have chosen you. Well, we must be prepared. It's like the Sufis say. Illumination is not guaranteed, but it's virtually guaranteed that you won't have illumination unless you prepare yourself. Anything else from anyone about any of that? And thank you, Harvey. All right, dear, please read on.
It is generally held that the varied processes mentioned in the verse, like study of the scriptures, theological rational, I'm going to call that rationalizations. I don't know what that English word is. I need to brush up on my English. Listening to divine recitals and discourses and several other spiritual practices constitute man's spiritual journey leading to the realization of the Atman. But, says the Upanishad in this verse, these do not comprise the whole truth about the matter. These operate within the causality principle. These fall within the network of the cause and effect relation, the world of duality and relativity. But the Atman is beyond causality.
Yes.
It is not an object among objects, an item among the not-self items of the world, an observed sense datum among the observed sense data of the world, to be discovered by carefully worked out means. It is, on the contrary, the very self of the observer, of the seeker. As pure consciousness, infinite and non-dual, it is not the end product of the causal determination of means and ends. Nasti aktra kritena. I know I didn't say that right. The unconditioned cannot be made, the unconditioned cannot be had through the conditioned, as the Mundaka Upanishad clearly expresses it. Commenting on this, Shankaracharya says, "In this world there is no entity which is not subject to cause. All the worlds, terrestrial or celestial, are the products of action, of forces, and because they are products of action, they are non-eternal." Wow. What I seek, however, as a spiritual seeker, is the eternal, the immortal, the fearless, the changeless, the immovable, and the constant, and not what is contrary to these.
What it means is it's not eternal, in that the phase of manifestation is a very long time, we're told, billions of years, but it is not eternal. That which causes these, the day of Brahma and the night of Brahma, that is eternal. That is Brahma. That energy that becomes, that arises from the potential and then returns to the potential, the manifestation of the potential being the day of Brahma, all of these things that were listed as part of cosmos, but that's not eternal. It returns to its potential state after so many billions of years and remains in that state for so many billions of years. And then as Swami Sarvapriyananda says, when asked why it does it, he says, because it can, it manifests again.
I couldn't help saying wow while I was reading that, because it was an aha moment for me to think about the fact that if everything is caused by forces, from what little I know of physics, forces eventually dissipate.
Yes.
It may take eons, but we are talking about infinity here, and anything that's involved with a force eventually dies away. And so
it doesn't disappear. It simply changes form. E equals mc squared. So it may be in the form of matter now. It returns to its formless form as energy later on. So read that passage again so that we all get that firmly in mind. What is being said, I think it's a quotation from the Mundaka Upanishad.
It's Shankaracharya's commentary on the Mundaka. Is that how you say?
Mundaka.
Still learning how to say all these words. So here is Shankaracharya. In this world, there is no entity which is not subject to cause. All the worlds, terrestrial or celestial, are the products of action, of forces. And because they are products of action, they are non-eternal. What I seek, however, as a spiritual seeker, is the eternal, the immortal, the fearless, the changeless, the immovable, and the constant, and not what is contrary to these.
Now, those words that were just used, which I'm going to ask you to repeat, these are as close to the definitions of Brahman as English human speech can come. So what are the adjectives that he uses to describe?
What I seek, however, as a spiritual seeker, is the eternal, the immortal, the fearless, the changeless, the immovable, and the constant, and not what is contrary to these.
That is the definition of Satchidananda Brahman. are the closest that we come in language. And of course, none of those words are really comprehensible to us. We don't know eternal, we know time. We don't know immovable, we know only motion. Things changing. We don't know changeless, we know change. So this is why, as you pointed out earlier, Jeff, this is why neti is necessary. We have to say, it's not this, it's not that. It's not this other thing. It is nothing within the terrestrial or cosmological worlds, which are the product of forces, and therefore those forces having been combined and producing this effect will later become uncombined and go back to their primordial forms or take some other form. A seed becomes a plant. A plant becomes something with flowers and buds. A bud becomes a flower. The flower goes through its lifespan and then drops away and makes seeds. Beautiful cycle. But just that, nothing more. And so the cosmos is just that flower writ large. Anything else from anyone about any of this? All right, Hughes. Well, how are we doing for time?
13 minutes.
Oh my, we still have lots of time. Good, good. Okay, away we go.
Shankaracharya's interpretation of the above verse of the Katha Upanishad, though slightly different, still lays emphasis on the primacy of divine grace as self-realization of the Atman. Whom alone, that is, one's own self, this seeker seeks, longs for, by that self alone, that is, by the seeker, one's own self is attained, is realized. That's kind of strange wording there. I'll read it one more time.
Do, yes.
Whom alone, that is, one's own self, this seeker seeks, longs for, by that self alone, that is, by the seeker, one's own self is attained, is realized. Here the choosing is done by the seeker by means of an earnest longing and struggle. This seeking and struggle on the part of man is essential, according to every spiritual teaching, but it is only to draw down the grace of the Atman through a self-revelation, as we have seen earlier. Shankaracharya emphasizes that essential of divine grace in commenting on the first part of the verse. How is the Atman obtained? This is answered. To that lover of the Atman reveals, manifests its own real form, its own real nature. That is the meaning.
And there is the key word, love. Love. What is it that we love? If we are yearning to love, and this is where bhakti and Advaita meet, in this love of the eternal, this love of the Atman, the inexpressible, the unknowable in any intellectual sense, but love is of the heart. Love is of the heart, not of the mind. It can express itself through the mind. We have Valentine's Day and so on. But it is not the mind. Love is something of the heart. And it is that the power of that love that draws the attention of the divine. when that love, as Swami Prabhupada would say, no further progress is possible until the heart center opens, until love begins to flower within the human being for the divine. Then spiritual progress can go forward very rapidly if you do daily spiritual practices.
And as St. John said, all you need is love.
Yes.
Love, love, love.
Oh, that's St. John.
St. John of the Beatles. I couldn't help myself, sorry.
Well, St. John of the Cross said something of the same too. Love of the divine, in spite of the divine being that which persecuted him. He said it was, Mary said it was your love of me and your understanding that it was the divine that allowed me to free you. So
I think that's why people, lay people and people who are not particularly on a intentional or conscious spiritual path, they see people who seem to have given every worldly thing up, but they see that person being just ecstatic, just incredibly joyous
yes,
all the time or most of the time. And they just can't understand, how can you be that way? You have no partner in life. You have no home. And that person just smiles. They can't even, and don't even begin to explain it, because they have the divine 24/7, and that is their partner, their home, their partners. Their home is anywhere. I mean, they can be free in the body like that.
this is why those monks and nuns can wander up and down the banks of the Ganges, having nothing, owning nothing, simply living from moment to moment, because they embody just what you said. And it is, as you said, incomprehensible to people who haven't got that background that allows them to understand why this is a possibility.
But I
Well,
also, sorry, I also feel like we can have some of that.
oh,
You
yeah,
know, I in this incarnation presently will never be in what I just described, but I do feel like I have enough of it to have a sort of sustainable joy, if not sustained, sustainable and sustaining. Sustaining is the
I
word I
don't
want.
think any of us have any idea what might happen to us.
Well, true, but I just am saying that, like, right now, I mean, I I don't I see those people. I see a few of those people that I just described.
Yes,
And to me, it's like, it just fills me with joy because they're not faking it.
no,
They can't. You can't fake that.
no, you cannot.
And it's always given me hope. It's given me hope to get to the point where I am right this moment, which is continuing toward what they have,
Amen.
you know.
Amen, amen, amen.
And if you run across someone who is faking it, you can tell, right?
Oh, yes. Well, and it is so, it rends your heart to see them trying to pretend to be what they're not, because they know what it is that they should be, but they don't have the patience to actualize it, so they pretend to it. And it is so, it's sorrowful to see it, and it causes its reason to pray for them. We all know them. We all know.
Well, maybe they're just faking it till they make it, you know.
Well, that is one way to think about it. That's good. So, anything else from anyone?
Actually, it brings me to my memory a story from the gospel. Sri Ramakrishna was talking with one of the devotees, and the story was, I think, I don't know who was reading Ramayana to a group of people. And there is a layman in that group who was just keep on crying. So the reader asks him, "Why are you crying listening to Ramayana? Do you understand?" He says, "I don't understand a word what you said. All I see is Rama in front of my eyes."
Mm,
Mm.
beautiful. And if that's what we see in front of our eyes, it would bring tears with his shining, glorious self. Ram. Om Ram Jai Ram. Om Ram Shri Ram Jai. Thank you, Baba. Anything else from anyone? How are we doing for time?
We have 4 minutes,
Good.
but I'm reading ahead, and the next material, each paragraph refers to what came previous and that sort of thing, and there's long quotations and stuff, so I'm thinking this might be a good place to stop.
Okay. I'm amenable to that. Everybody else okay with that? Okay, well, we'll just leave it at that then. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward, knowing that the Mother, Father, Divine Being, mentioned in the opening prayer for these sessions, has us in their secure and loving embrace. That is the glory of being who we are as ones who come together to study together the art of spirituality. May we be well and in bright spirits until tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, when the topic of the talk is but, B-U-T, but, and the subtitle is Facing Your Doubts and Fears. So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow morning. And
I did want to mention something real quick for
Yes.
those of you who are local to the center, and this was not in the newsletter intentionally, just because we're trying it out. But starting tomorrow, if you'd like to experience the Zoom talk from the center, they're going to meet in the monastery library, not in the chapel, just because it's easier to set up, and they're not expecting a whole lot of people to come at first, but they're going to basically broadcast it onto this big screen TV that's in the library, and it'll be very comfortable, and you can sit, and somebody will have a laptop for people who want to ask questions and such. But if you are near the center and want to come and join a small group of us for the talk at 11 in the morning, then please do that. You're very welcome to do that.
yeah, I'll be doing the Zoom from here.
From there, yeah.
They'll be putting it up on the big screen there. And as Cindy said, they'll have a laptop so that if you have questions or comments that you want to make, you'll be able to do that. And everybody will be able to hear you.
Yes.
So,
And everyone else who comes on Zoom, it'll be just like it always is. It won't be different for you all.
Actually, last night, there are a couple came from, they're visiting.
It's 1 o'clock.
they're visiting their son from Delhi.
Uh-huh.
They are followers of Ramakrishna Mission in Delhi for a long time. And the lady, actually, they have a value type of studies that she is in charge of that one. She takes care of it. I hope they will show up because I invited them for tomorrow.
Okay, good. Okay.
I spoke to them on the phone.
All
Yes,
right.
they
Very
told
nice.
me, yes.
Very nice.
There will be tea and coffee and snacks.
And also the gentleman sang the Kandana Bhava Bhanjana last night.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Well, then, until tomorrow, loved ones. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. And may each of us be well and in bright spirits. Good rest of the day to you.
All right. Thank you.